Excellencies, our next speaker is Mr. Getachew Engida, who is the Deputy Director General of the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, apologies there, UNESCO. Mr. Engida, the podium is yours, please.
Your Majesty the Queen, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to attend the opening ceremony of the 2016 Global South-South Development Expo. I wish to thank the government of the United Arab Emirates for organizing this event devoted to enhancing innovation towards achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Innovation in the new development agenda calls for new systems thinking, new ways of operating, and new technologies that focus on finding new solutions to today's complex problems. It calls for leveraging scientific knowledge and technological know-how into products, services, and employment that put the world onto the path of sustainable development. Science, technology, and innovation is essential for the creation of knowledge, for economic growth, and sustainable development. For this, we need to create the right ecosystem. We need to bridge knowledge divides. Moving forward places a premium on national ownership, on the mobilization of effective action and resources at the national, regional, and local levels. This means first strengthening national capacities in science, technology, and innovation on a demand-driven basis. Science capacity is vital for autonomous and therefore sustainable development. This is why UNESCO has worked with 15 countries in Africa to create national STI systems, and we must scale this up. This is the objective of the International Center for STI Innovation through South-South cooperation based in Kuala Lumpur under the auspices of UNESCO. This is also the aim of UNESCO's work to encourage countries to develop innovation hubs in the form of science and technology parks and to develop centers of excellence. An excellent example, ladies and gentlemen, is the network of the African Institutes for Mathematical Sciences, a Pan-African network of centers of excellence for postgraduate education, research, and outreach in the mathematical sciences, which UNESCO is working to scale up across Africa by 2013. As demonstrated in the UNESCO Science Report, innovation is hindered by the weak linkages between academia and industry. Universities are also not sufficiently equipping graduates for the knowledge economy. Sustainable development is being hampered by current skills shortage and skill mismatches between the skills companies are seeking for and what most universities are actually producing. If action is not taken now to reverse current trends, by 2020, the world could have 40 million too few workers with tertiary education relative to demand. To address such challenges, UNESCO is supporting partnership in the Arab region between academia and industry in the field of converging technologies to reorient academia towards solving these problems. While trends indicate that more less developed countries are facing more resource on research and development, it is still insufficient to tackle the myriad problems that could be resolved with the aid of research and development. None of the least developed countries has reached the 1% target of gross domestic products devoted to research and development. Private sector investment in research and development has also yet to be tapped. This is where developing countries and high-income countries diverge the most because it is the private sector that contributes the lion's share of research expenditure in developed countries. A stronger private sector could therefore make all the difference in boosting investment in research and development in developing countries. Building on a solid knowledge base starts first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, with ensuring the provision of quality education for all. In this connection, UNESCO is producing normative and operational capacity building support to countries in developing countries, inclusive of quality education systems that promote lifelong learning for all. This includes providing demand-driven support for translating the Sustainable Development Goals for Education 2030 agenda into national policies, plans, and budgets, and leading the coordination and review monitoring of SDG 4 Education 2030 at a global and regional level. The challenges associated with sustainable development cannot be resolved by working alone. The 2030 agenda places a clear premium on innovative partnerships and on integration and integrated approaches. UNESCO is supporting such innovative South-South cooperation partnerships. There are a number of initiatives which UNESCO is taking place in Africa and the Asia-Pacific. They are being implemented in collaboration with 2 South-South cooperation centers of excellence working in the region under the auspices of UNESCO. This includes the International Center for South-South Cooperation for Science, Technology, and Innovation, and the Regional Humid Tropics of Hydrology and Water Resources Center for Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Supporting innovation cannot be separated from promoting culture and cultural diversity, ladies and gentlemen. There is no innovation possible without a vibrant cultural environment. Culture is therefore also a key element in promoting innovation in the 2030 agenda era. We live in a new age of limits in energy resources and sustainability of our planet. This means we must make far more of the boundless energy of human capacity and ingenuity. We must release the powers of science, technology, and innovation and creativity to craft new solutions that are inclusive, just, and sustainable. Taking this forward requires the full engagement of the international community to promote South-South and triangular cooperation for which UNESCO is fully committed. Thank you. Shukran.
I'm very privileged to have as our keynote speaker this morning, Her Majesty Queen Noor Al Hussein of Jordan. Queen Noor of Jordan is an international humanitarian who has been championing many global causes for peace, for understanding, and for sustainable development over many, many years. She is the chair of the King Hussein Foundation, which she founded in 1999 to promote humanitarian work around the world. She was an avid and strong advocate for the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, and she also spoke in the UN Security Council in New York for the elimination of nuclear weapons. Today, Queen Noor of Jordan comes to this podium to share her valuable views with us as the keynote speaker, to give us her wisdom, her views on our theme of enhancing innovation towards achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the podium Her Majesty Queen Noor Al Hussein of Jordan.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good morning. Welcome to the 8th Annual Global South-South Development Expo here in the United Arab Emirates, in the extraordinary emirate, Dubai. It is my privilege to join with all of you this morning. Let me begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to the Zayed International Foundation for the Environment and its chairman, Dr. Mohammed Ahmed bin Fahad, for hosting this expo on behalf of the government of the United Arab Emirates at such a pivotal moment for our global commons. My thanks go as well to Ambassador Richard Nduhura, resident of the United Nations General Assembly High Committee, President on South-South Cooperation, and Jorge Chediak, Envoy of the United Nations Secretary General on South-South Cooperation and Director of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation. My thanks go to them for inviting me to join with you today. The United Arab Emirates was a particularly suitable choice to host this year's expo, enhancing innovation towards achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as it has distinguished itself as a developing country model for its significant, innovative achievements and sustainability. This year's theme also provides a valuable lens through which to address the scale and ambition of the new inclusive agenda on sustainable development, adopted last year at last September at the United Nations. As we meet here, it is appropriate to emphasize that cooperation among developing countries is nothing new. For centuries, they have been helping their neighbors in need, especially at times of humanitarian crisis. Since the 1990s, the idea of South-South cooperation has expanded rapidly. I remember well chairing in the early 1990s AU's advisory board for the pioneering Center for the Global South in Washington, D.C., where we examined sustainability and human security challenges in the context of South-South and North-South relations, with special emphasis on the environment, economic disparity, human rights, and population, issues which continue to bedevil us today. But as you've heard, today the presence of South-South cooperation in international discourse is much stronger. And it is the context, of course, in which brings us here today to address how we all collectively can play a key role in advancing the development of goals promoted by the 2013 Agenda. The global development cooperation landscape is changing rapidly. Developing countries and emerging economies have become key actors, not only in trade and investment, but also in global and regional development. They have amassed rich, groundbreaking, and diversified development practices, and are actively supporting each other to find practical and relevant policy solutions. I am particularly looking forward to this gathering's exchange of best practice models, which no doubt will be of incalculable benefit to us all. The new inclusive agenda on sustainable development and the associated sustainable development goals acknowledge the critical role South-South cooperation is playing in development. Official development assistance, ODA, and other official flows need to be smarter to catalyze and leverage all sources of financing needed for the goals, particularly towards more vulnerable, middle-income countries or states in transition that are severely impacted by regional and humanitarian crisis. Developing countries are also gradually demonstrating leadership in building common agendas and taking collective actions in order to address a multitude of challenges that cut across regional and national boundaries. South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation have increased the range of opportunities for development partnership. For many developing countries, they are offering a significant resource channel that is additional to and on different terms from official development assistance funds. Southern partnerships are vital in overcoming current development challenges and reaching internationally agreed development goals, including the 15-year Sustainable Development Goals, to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all. South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation, complementing the traditional North-South model of development assistance, will also be critical in implementing this agenda. These goals will only be achieved through improved global partnership among UN, other multilateral institutions, NGOs, national, public, and private sectors, and civil society. One recent and heartening example of the critical importance of South-South engagement in such triangular partnership building is the Paris Agreement, which enters into force in 4 days. The 200-nation-strong commitment to universal, legally binding caps on emissions to curb the global rise in temperatures is the result of decades of negotiations, which achieved a milestone treaty in no small part due to the engagement of developing nations. And here I must digress to pay tribute to the United Arab Emirates' renewable energy company Masdar, pioneering green energy development and technology transfer in our region, aiding critically challenged countries like Jordan in the development of our wind and solar power. But another example, closer to our home here, of multilateral, multi-sectoral partnership building to address a burgeoning global challenge emanating from our region, sadly lacks such consensus on root causes and solutions. The current calamitous global displacement crisis, the highest number ever recorded, highlights many of the challenges you will be addressing here: climate change and resource scarcity, poverty and marginalization, and the need for more visionary, inclusive, sustainable, human security-based governance. Our region, MENA, and East Asia alone account for around 60% of the global total of 65.3 million forcibly displaced, the global consequences of which we witness daily. Since 2011, over 15 million Syrians have been displaced inside Syria or into neighboring countries and beyond. Syria's neighbors, Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey in particular, are reaching a dangerous saturation point. Lebanon and Jordan have the awful distinction of having the largest per capita refugee populations in the world. In Iraq, almost 4 million people have been internally displaced in the past 2 years alone. Almost 250,000 Iraqi refugees are struggling in Turkey, Jordan, and other host or transit countries. And in 2015, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen accounted for over 50% of the world's total conflict displaced. The vast majority of all displaced throughout our region are living well below the poverty line. 1 out of every 122 people on earth is displaced. There, but for the grace of God, go you and I. Please think about that as you explore and craft future policies, because the implications of such massive suffering are dire, not only today for those immediately affected, but for coming generations everywhere, in the loss of educated and productive human potential required to rebuild conflict regions, in dangerous, unprecedented sectarianism, and the potential drivers of extremism and future violence from loss of hope and confidence in a more secure future. In Jordan, in accordance with the principles of South-South and triangular cooperation, we established a response platform for the Syria crisis in 2014 to ensure a broad-spectrum, coherent response to the multifaceted challenges we face through partnerships among the public sector, civil societies, and donor countries. International aid has covered approximately 60% of our needs. While no official figures are available on bilateral support from regional donors, I know well from firsthand experience in our camps that Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia have supported invaluable humanitarian infrastructure development. Over the past 7 decades, we have worked diligently in Jordan to further our vision of an inclusive, equitable society. Thousands of years of civilization have shaped the basic principles which guide our national development: the open flow of people, ideas, trade, and diversity. We've valued moderation, regional cooperation, and cross-cultural interaction. These principles have enabled us to play a supportive and stabilizing role in our turbulent region by promoting the peaceful settlement of disputes through mediation and peace-building and peacekeeping efforts. The key themes of this conference in relation to sustainable development have long guided our national development priorities, particularly in the areas of poverty eradication, food security, public-private partnerships, green technologies, and of course, economic growth. In my work with the critical global challenges of the displaced, the missing, the marginalized, and those suffering crushing poverty, I often see the seeds of perpetual instability and conflict. But where real investment has been made in human security, in human rights, education, economic empowerment, and women's leadership, I have seen young people, and those of all ages, even older than me, flourish as agents of change who work towards and encourage progress, prosperity, and peace. For societies, economies, and nations to thrive, people must, all people must. This has been the foundation of my own human security-focused initiatives in Jordan and beyond. After my marriage to King Hussein in 1978, I looked at innovative ways to complement public and private development efforts in Jordan and to fill gaps in our socioeconomic policies. The resulting best practice programs now administered by the King Hussein Foundation reflected our shared priorities for more equitable, sustainable development, focusing on our most precious resource, our people. As my late husband consistently said, this was not a slogan for King Hussein. This was a very real, everyday preoccupation. These programs introduced an integrated approach to sustainable development to the region, focused on the inextricable linkages among central obstacles to human and sustainable development, including deficits in women's empowerment, knowledge, governance, as well as crises caused by occupation and regional and outside military interventions. Our experience has shown that investing in women's leadership by empowering them with knowledge, training, and economic opportunities promotes local and national stability and prosperity by reducing poverty and hunger, improving health and education. IMF research, in fact, reveals that allowing women to take their proportionate place in a country's labor force can radically increase GDP. And empowered women raise daughters and sons with access to horizons of gender, social, political, and economic possibility. And in our work with host and displaced communities in Jordan, we recognize that this is particularly important for refugee women and their families as well. We all know the old phrase, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. I'm not much of a fisherman, but in my experience, the saying should be, teach a woman to fish and everybody eats. In short, investment in women is investment in their children and society's future. Far more than airstrikes and boots on the ground, empowered women combat poverty, desperation, and radicalization. The leadership potential of youth is another myopically underutilized resource. Look anywhere today. Old hierarchical and inflexible power centers are breaking down. It is as important for policymakers to reach out across age barriers as it is across gender, race, creed, or country. This is why the King Hussein Foundation has been acting as a disruptive, innovative force for young people in education, economic empowerment, and entrepreneurship, community service, and cross-cultural understanding as well. Our focus through our Jubilee Institute on the academic and leadership potential of meritorious scholarship students from diverse cultural and social economic backgrounds has yielded remarkable rewards through its emphasis on critical thinking, STEM, e-learning, girls' leadership, citizenship, conflict resolution, and community service. Our students and graduates have contributed to innovative companies such as Google, Microsoft, and Yahoo, and winning awards such as Intel's 2013 Award in Applied Mathematics, inspiring NASA to name a main belt asteroid after that student. And girls, despite being told that IT is an exclusive boys' club, have earned 20th globally in an edutainment app challenge competition. These are just a few of the many young men and women who embody our hope and faith for a future of constructive innovation in our region. Over the past 3 decades, our foundation programs have provided training and capacity-building expertise in 22 countries in the broader Arab and Asian regions. Inshallah, constructively contributing to our larger quest for social equity, cohesion, and peace. Today, as a member of the Arab Foundations Forum, chaired this year by the Dubai-based Emirates Foundation, we are joining our 35 years of experience with other Arab philanthropists who, through dialogue, networking, learning, and collaboration within the Arab region and beyond, are leading a youth initiative in partnership with the OECD, addressing particularly goal number 8 of the SDGs, that calls for sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. The spirit of solidarity that inspires South-South and triangular cooperation creates the space for developing countries to share lessons on policy choices, business models, and technological innovations that have been effective in lifting millions out of poverty. In the light of the objectives and targets of the 2013 Agenda for Sustainable Development, it is clear that strengthened efforts and comprehensive human security-based global partnerships are needed to accelerate progress. Only by working together across borders to focus on a broader concept of human security, by sharing the opportunities and benefits of our world with all people, and by enabling them to contribute in return, can we transcend the deprivation and hopelessness that so often lead to conflict and insecurity within countries and among them. As the United Nations Security General Ban Ki-moon said, the biggest threat to terrorists is not the power of missiles, it is the politics of inclusion. Missiles may kill terrorists, but open, fair, and compassionate governing economic and social systems are the most powerful weapons against extremism. Upholding each other and our common humanity is the only path to security and peace everywhere in the world. I've seen this time and again in the last 4 decades in Jordan and across the globe. Let this be the foundation for the work that you do. It is the essence of the teachings of all great faiths, expressed by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in these words: "No one of you is a true believer unless he wants for his brother that which he wants for himself." All development partners are here this week, and together we can achieve much, much more than we can even imagine on our own. I wish you all a very productive and rewarding Expo. Salam alaikum. Peace be with you.